This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hello and welcome to FinTech Insider Insights. I'm Nadine Timmer-Bodenstein, Ventures Product Lead at 11FS. In this episode, we are discussing the estimated 15 million people in the world considered high net worth individuals. It's a small market, but a highly valuable one. And as wealth services become more democratized and more mass market solutions are rolled out, we discuss how wealth management can continue to provide value to high net worth individuals. What do high net worth individuals expect from their financial services? What challenges do they face? And how can traditional firms continue to provide value to younger, tech-savvy wealth holders? Firstly, I'm delighted to welcome Will Jones, Chief Design and Product Officer at 11FS. Welcome to the show, Will. For those who don't know, do tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you, and delighted to be joining. In a nutshell, aim to lead teams to make lovable products, things that people genuinely want to use, that have a function but also make you feel something, and solve unmet jobs to be done. Some of those things happen to be in a wealth space, so hopefully I'll find something useful to say during this. But otherwise, I'm going to sit back and listen to all of the intelligent people that we have on this specific episode. So, yeah, looking forward to this as much as I'm sure you are.
Well, it's great to have you here. It's also a pleasure to be joined by Alexandra Loydon, Private Client Director at St. James's Place. Thank you so much for being here, Alexandra. Could you also give us a little background to yourself and St. James's Place?
Thank you, and hi, Nadine. So I am Alexandra Loydon. I am by profession a tax lawyer, so never at the top of anybody's dinner party list invites, but that's my background. I've been with St. James's Place for 13 years. I sort of fell into financial services and developed a love for it, and I'm in the very fortunate position now of being responsible for ensuring that we deliver the right services and advice to high net worth clients, predominantly in the UK. I manage a large team, largely SMEs and technicians, who provide financial and investment advice to those individuals and families.
Wow, brilliant. Can't wait to hear your insights, seeing as you are in a fantastic position to share them with us on this show. We are also joined by Daniel Gold, who is the CEO and founder of Stratiphy. Hi, Daniel. How are you? And what are you up to at Stratiphy?
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here and to represent Stratiphy, which I believe at the time of recording is still the UK's newest retail investment manager, as we got our go-ahead from the FCA at the beginning of April. So at Stratiphy, we've taken inspiration from the investment banks in terms of how they build client portfolios. And when I was working in investment banking, I saw the way they were using systematic, quantitative investment strategies to manage client money. And I found that approach fascinating. What I found equally fascinating was the contrast with the options currently available in an accessible way to retail investors. And this is things like copy trading, thematic investing, model portfolios, and stock picking. So our hypothesis at Stratiphy is that most investors are starting from a baseline that can be improved on by using data analysis to get the basics right. So essentially, we're looking to bridge the divide between the techniques that higher networks have traditionally had access to and the rest of the wider market. So that's what we're doing. And I'm under strict instructions also to mention that we're currently crowdfunding on Crowdcube. So if anyone's interested in what we do, please check us out.
Brilliant. Also really looking forward to hearing your insights. And last but by no means, we are delighted to be joined by Giles Hutson, the CEO of Insignis Cash. Welcome, Giles. Could you also tell us about yourself and what you do at Insignis?
Thanks. Hi, Nadine. Thank you very much for having me. Well, I think first and most importantly, Alexandra can feel more comfortable about her dinner party status because I used to be an investment banker. So I just like to apologize in advance for that. But about 10 years ago, I left that industry, and together with my co-founder, we set up Insignis. Insignis is a very simple proposition that actually exists in the United States, but we built a UK independent version of that business to allow clients to access multiple banks, multiple savings products through a single platform. So we have a very simple balance sheet on one side. We have 46 banks to whom we provide deposits in multiple currencies. And on the other side, we work with about 12,500 financial advisors around the UK to provide the service to their clients across all shapes and sizes, high net worth individuals. But then those high net worths may have businesses, may have trusts, may have roles on a charitable board, etc. So we cater for all of those different client types.
Thank you, and a great hello to all of you. So let's dive into the show. I think it's always useful to start by profiling who high net worth individuals are and what they might look for in a financial services provider. So high net worth individuals are those customers who have between £1 and £5 million in investable assets. Going up on a sliding scale to very high net worth individuals are those with between 5 and 30 million. And finally, ultra high net worth individuals are those with 30 million plus. And we know that often with more money comes more complex banking needs. So Alexandra, I'm going to go to you first. From your experience, besides the money alone, what differentiates a high net worth individual from other banking customers?
So I think what differentiates the customers is the level of investable wealth they have that naturally brings with it an increased level of complexity, really, around the advice and the services that they need and the range and breadth of the services that they expect.
Thank you. And Giles, you touched on what you do at Insignis. How do you think perhaps one of the ways in which these individuals have more complex needs is around the cash management side of things? What do you see coming through with your customers?
So I think in as a single word answer, the word time is always at the forefront. So our clients just don't have time to manage multiple counterparties, have multiple relationships. They would like, frankly, as few points of contact as possible, and for those points of contact to be as sophisticated as possible, to be able to answer as many questions as possible. So in the old days, whatever that means, if you wanted multiple bank accounts, you had to open up several accounts, and that includes a huge amount of paraphernalia, a huge amount of pain from a account application process. And like other industries, platformization, which is a horrible but appropriate word, comes along and allows high net worth clients to save huge amounts of time by accessing multiple product providers through a single interface.
That's really interesting. And I mean, I suppose on the topic of platformization and Daniel, also drawing from your experience with setting up Stratiphy, how do you think we maintain that personalized service? In a context where high net worth individuals are time poor, they're looking to, achieve certain things in a very specific way. How do we make sure we don't lose sight of the perhaps more traditional human first touch points in this type of industry?
Well, so I think it's important to recognize there's two main approaches to personalization. One is this human-centered approach where you have a personal advisor you can build a relationship with and sit down with face-to-face. The other is a technology-first approach where a system can be built which can take into account the individual requirements and criteria of each individual investor and cater to their needs. So, I mean, the market is a very big one. There's different people who need different types of services, but the automation in our approach in particular is a way that we can provide this level of service to the wider market and provide the same types of tools that high net worths have had traditionally had access to.
And Will, we've obviously conducted quite a lot of our own research at 11FS with interviewing high net worth individuals as well as their wealth managers. And we often speak about how when they manage their money, it's almost like managing a small business. What does this entail and what added complexity comes into those types of decisions that are made?
I think it's really interesting. If you're looking at probably more just investments and classic wealth space, a lot of that is over a long time, and actually the interactions that people need. It's oversight and, I guess, the trust that either the person or the technology that you've chosen to believe are going to make your money grow are doing the right thing. But I think when it comes to the actual day-to-day, because with most of these services you do have the more banking and cash management side as well as investments. In the more day-to-day, these areas of people's lives are a mess. You might have as a really simple individual, and I'm going to refer to myself, I don't have a huge number of dependent staff or properties or different places where I'm jetting off throughout the year. And that is because I'm not a millionaire, sadly. But if all of the above are concerns for people who perhaps have the means and, I guess, the ability to have people working for them, need to have moorings for a boat, need to have various different properties to manage, it does start to become like a small business. And then when you factor in the idea that some of the things I've just named are assets in their own right, the complexities there become huge. And I think we've seen as well that a lot of individuals we've spoken to, they all have a slightly different mental model of how they like to bucket up and see these different areas of their lives, whether that's practically by geography or by person or by whatever it might be, or whether it's aligned to goals or outcomes. You need to start to create these systems that make it very easy for not just a relationship manager to have those conversations and be able to pick up and understand how someone thinks of their money and the goals they have, but also when it comes to digital interfaces, and I know we'll get onto this, that you have the complexity of having to present that information in a logical way for people whose lives are completely different.
Absolutely. And I think that's also where, the personalization element becomes even more important. Like Daniel touched on earlier, it's not just around the human touch, how you make that a personalized experience, but also how you bring that through the interface, the tech, the platform, etc.
I was going to comment as well that I think one of the things that makes this segment of the market very different is that they have potentially a different risk appetite, but also as Alexandra mentioned, more capacity to invest. So they have the ability to segregate their investments or cash management or property or whatever there is and to manage them all individually. So I don't think there's necessarily a one-stop shop that will meet the needs of these clients in entirety. And that's why you have different services like the three represented here today, which provide niche solutions to each of the different parts of their portfolio that these clients want to manage.
And I think the other takeaway from that is that it's incumbent upon niche service providers to allow their services to be accessible through multiple channels. If we said, actually, you can only access Insignis by coming directly to us, it would work. It worked well, but we would actually be doing our clients a disservice if we allow them to access our service through, for example, their financial advisors software, their front end. Then they can see everything in one place. Why would they want to check their equity portfolio in one place and check their cash portfolio in another? Doesn't make any sense at all. So we think of this as savings as a service. You embed your own service into other people's front ends. You have distribution channels as a business, but more importantly, the client has a much more efficient interface.
But I think that links in, the point, Will, you were making, I think sort of the analogy in reality is a family office approach. So that there's three things that high net worth clients want to do. They want to work with somebody they trust, they want their assets to be kept safe, and they want a service and proposition bespoke to them. And it's on that latter point where I think the technology really comes in to enable firms to do that. It's value first, discount second with these clients. They're happy to pay as long as they're getting the services that they need. They want simple admin. I think you made the point, Giles. Bespoke communication, and that family office approach where, to Giles's point, they're time poor. They just want one contact who can effectively sort all of their challenges, their issues, their lives out. And technology plays an enormous role in enabling that to happen.
Absolutely. I think, we've spoken a bit about kind of high net worth individuals, and it's easy to focus on them as a single demographic. But we also do know that people come into wealth in different ways at different stages of their life. So I'd love to hear from anyone on how much this can affect the different expectations that they have in the service they get. I suppose, Alexandra, building onto your last point there around one of the most important factors for these individuals.
Look, I think, you're absolutely right that the demographic is wide. I mean, we generally see most of the wealth is still in London and the South, but, there's a lot of emerging entrepreneurs and younger people who are entering the sort of the higher net worth brackets of wealth. And that is driving a desire to, or driving higher expectations in terms of what firms can do, not just from a range of products, but it's the speed with which we can do stuff. It's the bespoking nature. And it's also this desire, they don't want to be, over communication is a real problem. They want to be, the communication has to be bespoke and relevant to them. And we need technology in order to be able to do that. You need sort of the reporting capabilities to be able to do that. We see clients coming from all walks of life. Lottery winners, moneyed individuals, new generation of gamers, sports and entertainment. It's enormously varied, and they genuinely all want to be serviced and advised in a way that's bespoke to them.
I think the difference is in financial education as well. So we have high net worth clients who are financially sophisticated. They understand the banking system. They understand FSCS protection, et cetera, et cetera. But we also have clients who've been through a liquidity event. As Alexandra mentioned, there may be a business sale. There may be an inheritance, whatever the source of wealth is. And that individual may not be used to having a large amount of cash in their bank account. So that takes a very different type of client service from just the kind of the user experience. There's actually the financial education of what the service is before you start talking about your own business. So I think there's a very important financial education piece there for people who are experiencing that injection of liquidity for the first time.
Yeah, and I'd add on that as well that there's probably it depends how people acquired their wealth as to how they understand financial products and services. So there's going to be a broad range of understandings in this market, and I think that's also going to be reflected in a generational, older generations and younger generations are going to have different understanding of the market and different expectations as well. So because it's such a diverse and varied market, I think it's important that providers like us need to make sure that the solutions we provide are understandable and accessible and simple enough for everyone to use.
Yeah, there's almost a baseline regardless of age or demographic of if you improve it for this person, you are likely to improve for everyone. And I guess to the point of younger demographics coming through, I think that what's the stat? I think it's about £5 trillion is going to change hands to create millennial millionaires. Now, whether that's accurate or not, this great wealth transfer is going to create a bunch of people who, again, if stats to be believed, are going to be looking to switch wealth advice based on the idea that they don't want that perceived to be stuffy relationships that perhaps a parent had, and they don't want that quarterly PDF because their expectations of what that service is going to be is not set by probably their other banks on their phone or what they've been used to. It's the best, always on, informative, intuitive, predictive technology that they've got from other parts of their lifestyle. So that demand is going to create, I genuinely think, quite an exciting shift and a bit of a free-for-all in terms of who gets their money, which is going to be really interesting.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting observation as well, because, most people think of, the high net worth space driving the rest of the market in terms of sophistication. But I think there's also a trend going on where, the rest of the market has access to some superb tools in terms of mobile apps, which have got always on accessibility. They're really intuitive. They're really accessible, really easy and fun to use. And that's also not been traditionally available to high net worth. So there's kind of a symbiotic process going on here where I think you're going to get new technologies moving into the high net worth space and improving services for those clients as well.
Following on from that comment, Daniel, Alexandra, I'd love to hear from you, especially in the context of St. James's Place, how or what are the strategies that you're discussing internally around continuing to provide value to perhaps your more established clients whilst also ensuring that you're not alienating this newer emerging demographic that's coming through?
Look, it's a great question, and it's something we grapple with a lot. Most of the wealth in the UK still sits in the 55 plus space, largely driven by pensions, and that sort of does actually quite vastly change as you sort of look to the future. In terms of sort of what clients' biggest asset class will be. I mean, look, we've got 1 million clients. We've got a distribution of 4,500 advisors. It's an enormously broad church when it comes to distribution. So we are serving lots of different types of people through different channels. And so therefore, technology and the development of technology is really, really key. And being able to use technology in a way to scale what we do is what we are very much looking at right now. But interestingly, a large swathe of our clients aren't digitally savvy yet. And I think Giles made the point, that there's an education piece to take clients on a journey to understand, how this can improve their client experience or their experience as a client. So, yeah, we've probably got one of every colour in terms of what clients are looking for, and it's a challenge. What technology does is enable us to deliver more to a broader range of clients in a cost-effective, scalable way.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think if there are no final comments, we can wrap up that first section there because we've got some really, really great insights. Coming up after this very quick break, we look at how high net worth customers can be served appropriately in a fast-changing world and whether new mass market platforms are really the enemy to wealth management firms, or is it the start of a beautiful friendship? Don't go anywhere.
At Evernorth Health Services, we believe costs shouldn't get in the way of life-changing care, and we're doing everything in our power to make it possible. Behavioral health solutions that also keep your projections at their best? It's possible. Pharmacy benefits that benefit your bottom line? It's possible. Complex specialty care that cares about your ROI? It's possible. Because we're already doing it. All while saving businesses billions. That's Wonder made possible. Learn more at evernorth.com/wonder.
I think we have a pretty good sense of who high net worth individuals are. So I'd now love to discuss the wealth management space more broadly and what good product design for the wealthy really looks like. And Giles, coming to you first, what does the wealth landscape look like today versus a few years ago?
Well, by way of anecdote, I am old enough to remember having to sign vast numbers of pieces of paper that all arrived with sticky tabs on them. And I can confidently say those days have mostly gone. We do allow clients to access our business through multiple channels. They can apply on a piece of paper if that's helpful for elderly or vulnerable clients. But the majority of applications arrive digitally and the majority of clients self-serve digitally. So clearly the ability for people to access their financial information on a real-time basis as opposed to, I think somebody mentioned the monthly statement earlier on in this discussion, is critical. But also I think technology lowers, if you like, the barrier to entry to this whole discussion. So I think Alexandra mentioned the family office concept. What investable assets do you have to qualify for kind of family office infrastructure, whatever that looks like? And that number is dropping down day by day because as you apply technology, then the financial advisor around which the whole world should, in theory, operate can vary and increase the number of products available through the use of technology. So I think it's generally been really positive for high net worth investors because they've got less interfaces, less numbers of people to deal with, and much more immediate access to the information.
Absolutely. And I mean, Daniel, coming to you, seeing as, you're in the kind of wealth tech space yourself, how have products and services for high net worth individuals changed, particularly in the wake of, the AI boom, other emerging technologies, kind of the shift towards digital banking? What are some of your biggest lessons learned from that?
Well, I think it's interesting. You've got probably a in-person type company here representing the digital mostly digital company, and we're a fully digital company. So you've got the full spectrum here. I think there's, got to be a trend towards digitization. Of course, you can't leave people behind. And, we recognize that there's obviously a very large cohort of people who don't have access to this technology or want to use it. But I think that's the direction of travel. And I think there's going to be more and more use of AI in an appropriate way. And, mobile first services. I just think that's, people want to enjoy using their services and not have to go through hurdles and bureaucracy and feel like it's another chore, another part of their job that they have to do each day. It should be a fun part of the process that they get to experiment with different tools, different techniques, and test them out and see which ones they like to use, and then stick with those. And that's what we've seen across the market, I think.
And Alexandra, you touched on earlier the fact that in the UK, the majority of wealth is still held by people who are aged 55 and above. And I think a lot of people have this traditional view of wealth management as, marble hallways, nice lunches with the wealth manager. Was that ever accurate? Does that still resonate? How have client expectations in that regard perhaps stayed the same or shifted in recent years?
Look, it's an interesting question. Again, I think different clients value different ways of interacting. So, we do have clients that sort of love coming into the office and being pampered. We have clients who never want to come into the office and do everything digitally. So is the traditional, wood panelled, red carpeted, fine dining room a thing of the past? No, I actually don't think it is, but I think it's much less of a feature than it previously was, and actually sort of slicker, more modern offices are certainly the sort of the direction of travel we are taking. But as I say, lots of clients are quite happy to interact digitally. What I would say, though, in the high net worth space in particular, if you are doing financial planning, I mean, the UK is one of the most complex tax environments in the world. I think there's only Peru, China, and the US that present more complex tax environments than the UK. And that naturally leads itself to clients wanting to see the whites of people's eyes who are advising them. But to sort of Daniel's point, they then want to enter into a relationship with a trusted advisor and be serviced in a way that's bespoke to them, and have the options to sort of, to choose how they sort of then that relationship is managed going forward.
I think that choice has become endemic. It's built into the application process, isn't it? So if someone applies for a service at our company, how they want to be contacted, your level of support, etc., is predefined by the application process. So we're not sort of learning this, client by client, if you like. We're giving the client that choice up front. And I think, that's probably the direction of travel. Do you want this to be executed on a mobile app? Do you want to be called on a physical call? Do you want video calls? All of that is predefined and then pre-categorized so that the relationship managers, the client services teams can operate on a sort of pre-configured basis.
And Will, how does this, what we've just been discussing around bespoke service, kind of preempting client need, etc., how does that translate into good product design for high net worth individuals?
Where to start? I could give you about half an hour on this, but I promise I won't. Look, I mean, at a base level, I think I said it before, but principles of good product design for high net worth is pretty much in line with good product design for anyone. So, like simplification of complex tasks, good hierarchy of information becomes even more important, given that you don't want to see all your money at once, given you have it in all sorts of different places. Great notification strategy, set and forget, making sure that there's consistency of the brand. But actually, one of the things I think in terms of designing for these individuals, it becomes even more relevant to design for behaviors rather than just transactions. I think we talked about this idea of financial education. Now, without trying to embed financial education and also aiming for something that's always on, you're going to get a bunch of people new to money who can always see how their investments are performing, and it leads to knee-jerk reactions. So it's actually the job of design to be able to, present information in a context that allows people to understand fluctuations, puts it in the context of what they're trying to go towards. And then also good, I think product design in this space is around how manual things are. People don't expect to have to do things manually at this level of wealth. So the more that we can automate, the more that we can predict and observe behavior and make it repeatable, the better. But then when it comes to actual advice or personalization, do people who are especially ultra high net worth want to just trust robo advice to create passive income? They want to pay for, from the people we've spoken to, they want to pay for and feel the presence of human intervention. They're not sort of at the Henry level. So actually, it's hard to scale people, easy to scale technology. So how do you use technology to scale people a bit better? If you've got human advice, how do you make it relevant to people? I mean, from the tax perspective, you're going to have a team of people that deal with quite niche things, and actually at a one-to-one level, that costs a lot. If you could use technology to be able to actually target that to people, present it in context within digital interfaces, they're still feeling personalized, but you're augmenting a relationship advisor with a greater wealth of things. And I think that's kind of the key to this. It's the richness of what you can provide through the technology that you've got while getting the basics right.
I think that's right, Will. I mean, we've certainly integrated technology into our face-to-face approach. So, cash flow modelling is all automated now, but it's combined with the face-to-face intellect of the tax planning, which I'm yet to see has been cracked in terms of. I haven't seen a really great digital solution to an end-to-end financial plan for a high net worth individual.
Brilliant. Daniel, coming back around to you, I mean, I'm sure some of those points that Will and Alexandra just raised probably resonated when it came to, designing Stratiphy and some of the decisions that you made there. How does it resonate with what you've done at your company?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in everything that's been said. I mean, people, want automation. They want AI to be helping decisions to be made better. But I don't think high net worths want to necessarily fully engage with a automated system all the time. They might want to for certain products and services where it makes sense. But for something that needs a human understanding, such as this tax example we keep coming back to, I don't think, anyone's looking to replace that human intervention. I think there are ways that AI can improve the quality of service, even in that use case, though. For example, understanding someone's financial, footprint, understanding their risk appetite, designing products that are appropriate for them can be something that can be made more standardized and more uniform with AI tools, and more automated with those tools. But this can supplement the work of an analyst or an advisor rather than replacing it. I mean, we're in a bit of a different situation in Stratiphy. We've taken the decision to work on a specific part of the wealth management problem, which can be fully automated, and we think it can be fully automated very well. And that's why we're working on that part. But there's clearly other parts which you need, the likes of St. James's Place to step in and help people with their broader needs.
Absolutely. And Giles, I mean, you've also already touched on how you are utilizing various different approaches to kind of upfront understand client preferences so that they can be personalized and targeted in certain ways later on in the journey. How are you perhaps at Insignis also looking at the use of technology further down in the kind of customer journey and life cycle?
Sure. So I think you have to step back occasionally and ask yourself what a high net worth individual is. And it conjures up, images of lying on the beach or sitting on a yacht. Well, actually, most of our clients are running their own business. They're a charitable trustee. They're setting up trusts for their children. They're thinking about intergenerational wealth. They've got an awful lot going on. So our account management team, our client services team, need to be able to talk in a sophisticated and eloquent way around all of those component parts. We have lots of clients that have an individual account, but also have an account on behalf of their business or may have referred a charity as the trustee. So I think of tech as empowering the human beings who work for the firm. It's not an either or. I think anybody who thinks it's either or is slightly missing the point. The point is to create kind of super people in the organization and empower them to be able to service the clients better, with more up-to-date information, more immediately available information. You may well have an AI-based partnership between the client services and the technology available. That's an increasingly common user case now in a number of different industries. But we don't see it as either or. We see it as using tech to empower the people, which then provide the service levels across that kind of portfolio of roles that make up a high net worth individual.
That's really interesting. And I suppose a follow-on question to that, because I couldn't agree more that you can't have one or the other when it comes to, the human touch as well as the technology. So I suppose if, digital alternatives did get to a level of sophistication where they could almost replicate that human element, do you think that there would be an option to roll out the type of services that you currently provide to high net worth individuals to a larger market, to a kind of more traditional mass market customer?
A short answer to your question, yes. And we can quantify the answer by reducing the minimum amount of money that needs to be on the platform to qualify as a client. And those numbers are coming down. Even though obviously it's more kind of commercially viable for those numbers to go up, those numbers are coming down, and they're coming down for sociological reasons because that's inclusive, which I think is really important. But they're also coming down because the use of technology around things like onboarding, artificial intelligence, applying it to the onboarding journey is a huge opportunity for us. And then you think about your cost of acquisition of a client, that comes down, and so the minimum amount of money necessary to access the service is reduced.
I think, Nadine, that I'd go on to say that so the FCA and the government are almost driving that through something called the Advice Guidance Boundary Review. They are saying to the industry that actually we need to make the services in this space available to a much broader demographic of individual. And it's going to be technology that helps us deliver that.
Absolutely. And I think that's, it also resonates with, the type of customers we do our research with. We speak to people across a kind of broad spectrum. And we touched on it earlier as well around, people who perhaps have inherited wealth or come into money at different points in time, and also being conscious of the ways in which they need perhaps additional support with certain elements. We've spoken about financial education, etc. So I think it's a really important point moving forwards. Will, as an industry, do you think that we have now joined these various dots and these various kind of factors and influences that we've been speaking about to not just help high net worth individuals manage their money better, but perhaps also help to create the next generation of high net worth individuals who perhaps might start with, using Daniel's Stratiphy and slowly move up the wealth spectrum to greener pastures in the future?
Oh, I'd like to think so. But ultimately it comes down to how much you got to put in the first place, really, doesn't it? And performance of the assets that we've got. And as soon as we've joined some of the dots, new ones appear somewhere else to join up, because genuinely one of the areas I'm interested in is I guess as we see all sorts of different types of assets, it suddenly becomes, from a product design perspective, a whole new challenge of trying to represent investments that actually people feel quite passionate and personal about. Like when you're designing for money placed somewhere, you just want a big number. If you're designing for a watch collection, all of us, or fractional art investing, it suddenly becomes a more emotive, playful thing. So I don't think we'll ever join up all of the dots. And that, I could, there's for that example, there's a thousand other things that changed the landscape of this, but it does sort of feel like, to the points that were made, it is becoming closer to actually more, I guess, inclusivity of making what was previously the preserve of people that could afford it in terms of advice and how to grow money, a little bit more accessible to people, and a little bit more less of a dream to be able to actually invest and hope for something back.
Definitely. So just to wrap up our conversation, I'd love to hear from each of you what you think the biggest innovation or trend in wealth management will be over the next few years. And I'll start with you, Daniel.
Well, I think it's got to be access to the market. So this is a trend that was started by the likes of Hargreaves and Lansdowne, giving people access to invest in equities. And it's been accelerated a lot in the last sort of 10, 15 years with the new commission-free trading platforms. But I think it's now the turn of low-cost, high-feature platforms like ourselves that offer automated money management to provide the tools to people to give access to the sophisticated tools that high net worths have had access to. So I think that access is going to be the big trend in the next sort of 10, 15 years.
Thank you. Giles, what do you think?
So I'm afraid I'm going to go with AI. Sorry, I know it's a very over-discussed source, but I think I think about user cases across our client services team, as I mentioned before, across our tech team from a coding audit perspective. I think about the enhancements to the onboarding journey, and ultimately all of those things mean either one of two things. They mean greater accessibility to the service, in which case a larger number of people benefit, to Alexandra's point, or they mean a better UX for the people that are using the service. So we are fast followers on this, but it is something that is already in our development plan to utilize AI to those benefits.
And Alexandra, I saw you nodding along. Would that also be your answer to the next biggest trend?
Look, I think the next biggest trend has to be AI, how we safely embed AI. And that goes out to sort of the government, and the FCA have a responsibility here as well. But I think that AI needs to be used in the right way. And I think trend in wealth management will focus over the coming years on the retirement market. And so I think it's using AI to ensure that we are driving people in the right direction and preparing for retirement is I think going to be an increasing trend.
I couldn't agree more. And last but not least, Will.
I was going to say AI as well. I'm going to have to make something else up now. But I genuinely think it's user experience or customer experience of which AI is part of the solution to. You've got, I guess, passive AI, which is going to make intelligent decisions for how to optimize your money. And then you've got AI that will provide you advice and you act upon that. And then genuinely trying to remove manual processes from probably the day-to-day cash flow of things. And we will see services that wrap that up in a more intelligent presentation layer that I don't think it kills off the role of advisors. It just makes them a little bit more powerful. And yeah, just because I haven't said enough trends, I think probably lowering that bar of access to this level of service in terms of wealth. But I think we've spoken to that already. Frankly, it's all bloody exciting.
It is indeed. So on that note, that brings today's discussion to an end. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and a big thank you to today's guests. So where can people find out a bit more about you, Alexandra?
Well, I'm LinkedIn and on the St James's Place website. And if you're ever swimming locally in Southeast London, I do a lot of outdoor swimming.
Oh, fantastic. I actually live in Southeast London, as does Will. So maybe we'll see you over summer. Giles.
Sure. So I'm also on LinkedIn and also on the Insignis website, and nobody wants to see me outdoor swimming.
Never say never. Daniel.
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn as well, surprise, surprise. But you can find Stratiphy online. We're stratiphy.io. That's with Stratiphy with a PH. And you can also download our app from the Play in the app stores. I also am not going to go out swimming with you guys.
just be me, Will and Alexandra in the summer swimming club then. And Will, where can people find out more about you?
I feel like I need a swimming reference. I'm a terrible swimmer, so you guys can have that club. You can find me, well, same as this podcast, searching out 11FS, 11fs.com. And I'd love to chat to you and add you on LinkedIn if anyone wants continuous conversation further.
Brilliant. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for listening. If you like what you've heard, follow our podcast and don't forget to leave us a review. It helps us make it better and helps others find the show. As always, if you want to join the conversation, find us on social media. Just search for 11FS or FinTech Insider or email podcasts@11fs.com. Thank you very much and goodbye.